I happen to chair a commission called the Historic St. Mary's City Commission in Southern Maryland,
Right.
where St. Mary's College is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to speak there Saturday.
It's a wonderfully historic area.
Well, it is, and St. Mary's City was the first capital of Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first English settlement in Maryland, and it has a rich history of religious freedom and the beginnings of democracy, and we're trying to tell that story through archaeology. There's nothing left above ground there, but we're recreating some structures, kind of like colonial Windsor.
There's some wonderful old houses around there.
Yeah, no, it's great.
It managed to endure.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So that is a great day trip. Right up the road is Sotterley Plantation, which we helped save on our endangered list.
Is that open to the public?
It's very much open to the public. Both these places are, yeah.
Now let's look at another town that's in our area that has been impacted by a subject that matters a lot to you, and that's Warrenton, Virginia.
Right.
They got a Walmart.
Right.
What happened?
They got a Walmart, but fortunately Warrenton is one of those. First of all, I should explain the context. A Walmart can, if it's strategically placed, can suck not only the economic but the social life out of an old historic community like that.
And has.
And it has in town after town. There's no question about that, and that's been a big issue. It's called sprawl. And what happened in Warrenton is that very fortunately, it has a Main Street program. The Main Street is a National Trust program that goes back about 30 years to work with.
That's the link I was thinking of.
Yeah, to work with the local business community to rebuild the capacity of downtown to compete with changing retail forces out there, and to find the niche markets and to fill in the vacancies. And Warrenton, although I haven't been there in a few years, I think it still has a pretty healthy downtown. But it's always very difficult to, you can't compete with Walmart on cheap underwear.
But you think, and most of it from China.
Right.
It was interesting because they had to get rid of their logo that was like Buy American or All American or everything here is American when it was pointed out that, but before I completely pound on Walmart, there was an instance of a barn. Remember this story?
Correct.
Where is that? In Ionia?
It's Ohio, I think.
Ohio? There was a barn that they actually, that was in their path.
That's right.
The owner of the property sold the land to Walmart, which they're allowed to do, and Walmart helped to preserve the barn. Were you pleased with that?
We were pleased with that, and we've been trying to engage Walmart over a period of years to try to be more community friendly in terms of how they site their stores and how they work with existing communities. And I first went down to Bentonville about 12 years ago and basically got nowhere. They weren't interested. But I went back a year ago, last year, and met with Lee Scott, who's the chairman and CEO, and the other top leadership. And there's a very changed atmosphere. They've become very environmentally conscious. They want to try to work with us. So as a trial period, where they're working up in Vermont, where they have very fragile small towns that are especially susceptible to the effect of Walmarts. And we raised in that meeting the issue of this barn in Ohio, and they followed up immediately and did the right thing.
But that's about the only instance of that I
Well,
found.
I don't want to, we're trying to bring them along.
Yeah.
Step by
If
step.
they wanted to put you on their board, would you go on it?
I don't think so. Thank
You
you.
don't think so.
I don't
So
think
there is a line.
Yeah.
Now,
But they're not the only ones.
Many of these programs, though, that you've mentioned are in small towns and small communities.
Yeah.
What about bigger cities, like when you have historic areas like Georgetown, right here,
Right.
where you see what's happening to M Street? That, it's debatable, but a lot of chain stores have come in.
Well, the other thing that we've done with the Main Street program, you're right, it started in the Midwest with medium and smaller communities. But about 10 years ago, we took it into major cities, not the downtowns of major cities.
Can you name
but,
some?
But yes, but the neighborhood commercial centers. We started in Boston, and we now have about 19 Main Street communities in Boston. Baltimore. We started a program here in Washington a few years ago. It's not what it used to be, but if you've been up there on 8th Street on the hill, southeast, that has really come back, and that's an example of what Main Street can do in an urban setting.
What do you see as most vulnerable in
for the most part, I think Washington is doing quite well. Uh, I'm going to answer your question in a minute, but
Yeah,
what's
take your
happening in
time.
Washington is that, and this is true in most cities, when downtowns get revitalized, it's usually a combination of reusing older buildings for creative new purposes, but also new construction. You know, and not every old building deserves to be saved. So and this is what creates the most vital communities, I think. Now that wouldn't be true here in a place like Georgetown because this is an historic district, but in other parts of Maine downtown, that would be appropriate, and it is. I'd like to see more vitality downtown.
Well, you notice
not
how
enough.
our downtown's actually shifted.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
it
gone
has.
away from Connecticut Avenue,
Right.
and moved closer to the Capitol.
It has, right.
And isn't that sort of a reverse pattern back to the way it once was?
Yeah,
That the
yeah.
Capitol was the focus.
Well, everything keeps moving in our society, right? Even downtown.
Do you like the development that's on
Massachusetts?
Pennsylvania Avenue, the museum, the Canadian, all of this?
Yeah,
that's
no, I
gone
do.
in?
I do. I think that, Pennsylvania Avenue is really our main street here. And I think having really interesting, good new buildings mixed in with the historic, like I like the museum, actually. I've been there, I've seen it, and I think it's a great attraction to have there. I like the Canadian Embassy, not FBI building, it can go.
Yeah,
It can
well,
go.
and but see, this is another point, and we exist in a culture of believing that if you don't like something, you just tear it down. We have houses that have stood for 10 years and they get torn down, so somebody new
Right.
can come along and put up a new house.
Right.
We shred through things.
Well, we're a throwaway society, Carol, and this gets to an issue that we're really focused on now, and that's called sustainability. When we're in an era of fighting climate change, we think saving older buildings can play a huge role.
I mean, preservation can be green.
Preservation is green. It's
Okay.
inherently green. It's the greenest of the building arts because we're saving resources. We're saving energy. I'll give you an example. A building like this has what we
You
call,
don't want to know.
besides those things, it has what we call embodied energy. It took energy to manufacture and extract these materials, to transport them here, to assemble them into a building. You demolish this building, all that energy is wasted. And it takes more energy to haul it away, more energy to build a replacement. And a good bit about sustainability is energy efficiency. The other thing we can do is we can make older buildings more energy efficient. We're very focused on that. So we have a big role to play
Those
there.
older buildings are built to last. And
Many of them are.
I
Many
mean,
of them
this
are.
is
That
a very
covers
good
a lot of
example.
territory.
But this building was pre-Civil War, and in the Civil War, it was a prison downstairs and a brothel upstairs, which really shows maximum use of a space.
Well, it does, and that's what we call adaptive reuse.
And I think some of the staff think it still feels like a prison downstairs.
Actually, it's creative adaptive reuse.
There should be, there should be more of that. Now you did some. You did.
Oh, can I answer your other question?
Yes,
What's
please,
most at risk to
absolutely.
DC? I think St. Elizabeth's Hospital, which is not familiar to most people, even in the district, is very much at risk. The problem there, it's a national landmark. It's not an easy site to rehab and to reuse. But there is a huge risk now that the Department of Homeland Security is eager to get in there, and they want to overbuild. They will reuse some of the buildings, destroy some of the buildings, and put a lot of new buildings in there. And the net result of this is to put 4 million square feet of office space into a national landmark that really can't accommodate more than 2.5 million. And I think it's a very, very serious threat. The other serious threat here in Washington is the Arts and Industry Building on the mall at the Smithsonian, which we had on our endangered list a few years ago.
We used to call it, what, the Museum of History and Technology, I think.
I think that's right.
It's had a couple of names.
Yeah, but it's been empty for a long
The one
time
with the
now,
flag.
and it's deteriorating.
Right.
And the Smithsonian just decided to take it back. They had an RFP out to find a private use for it, but the Smithsonian has $2.5 billion of deferred maintenance on its current structures, and how they're going to pay for the Arts and Industry Building with that kind of obligation, I don't know.